All right, 6 o'clock. We will call to order the regular council meeting of January 28th to order. Just as we're getting started, just like for those in the audience and for those watching at home, just like to acknowledge that Councillor Munkoff-Swain is joining us by phone this evening from the beautiful city of Brandon, Manitoba. As always, we are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The city of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nations, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. Just as we get going, we have one proclamation today, the Bell Let's Talk Day. This is one that's near and dear to my heart. It's about mental health. So, whereas January 29th, 2020 marks the 10th annual Bell Let's Talk Day, a day of conversation and mental health, and whereas Bell Let's Talk Day promotes mental health awareness, acceptance, and action built on 4 key pillars: fighting stigma, improving access to care, supporting world-class research, and leading by example in workplace mental health. And whereas the City of Beaumont encourages its citizens to join the conversation through calls, texts, and social media interaction to drive Bell's donation to mental health past 100 million, now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim January 29th, 2020 as Bell Let's Talk Day in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated the 16th day of January 2020. All right, so are there any modifications to the agenda?
Thank you, Worship. Administration doesn't have any modifications to the agenda this evening.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Hendricks.
So moved.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. Carries unanimously. We have no registered presentations in the open forum, but we do have 3 items on our consent agenda tonight. So I move that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Item 5A, regular council meeting, minutes of January 14th, 2020. Item 5B, committee of the whole meeting, January 21st, 2020. And item 12A, correspondence from Jim Wotherspoon, Reading Childcare in Beaumont. Discussion on the motion. Ms. Winner.
Thank you, Worship. We also do have correspondence 12A on the consent agenda item that administration would like to, and that's correspondence from Jim Wotherspoon.
Yeah, I said that. 10A.
Sorry, 10A, Councillor Barnhart's report.
Oh, Councillor Barnhart's report. Friendly
consent
amendment
agenda.
to add item 10A, Councillor Barnhart's report. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to comment on Councillor Barnhart's report, so I prefer it was excluded from the consent agenda.
Okay, Councillor Barnhart's report is excluded from the consent agenda, and we'll cover it when we get there. On the 3 items, meeting minutes from January 14th council meeting, committee of the whole January 21, correspondence from Jim Wotherspoon. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. There are no public hearings tonight, no registered presentations, which brings us to item 8A, Emergency Management Advisory Committee, elected official appointments. Good to go. Whenever
As a local authority, Council of the City of Beaumont is responsible for addressing the response to an emergency disaster. Council will recall that I was before you in the fall of 2019, bringing forward our new bylaw 963-19 Beaumont's Emergency Management Bylaw, which would bring us in alignment with the new regulations that's put forward by the province of Alberta, effective January 1st, 2020. To ensure that our new responsibilities are met, the City of Beaumont is required to create an Emergency Management Advisory Committee. Committee, of course, will be comprised of 2 elected officials, our Director of Emergency Management and our Deputy Director of Emergency Management, and we are required to have the committee meet at least annually. Complete list of duties are identified within the bylaw, Section 6. However, I do want to assure Council that where Bylaw 6A states that the committee is responsible for preparing, drafting, and presenting the considerations of our municipal emergency plan, that will be done for you, and you will review the document.
We appreciate that.
Upon the appointment of the 2 elected officials, we do hope to have the inaugural meeting of the advisory committee in the very near future, as the group will meet, become orientated with Beaumont's emergency management program, and by resolution set a chairperson and the meeting frequency for the committee. We don't feel that there's any stakeholder engagement required at this time to establish this committee, and of course the costs associated with Beaumont's Emergency Management Advisory Committee will be captured within existing operating budgets. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions Council may have.
Thank you very much. I'll open up the floor to questions from members of Council on the Emergency Management Bylaw Committee. Okay, seeing none, I guess we'll turn to the business at hand. We have to appoint 2 members to this committee. I'd like to thank all those members of Council that contacted me and put names forward. At this point, I would like to propose myself and Councillor Barnhart to be appointed to this committee, and I'll also make that motion. And so I'll open it up for discussion on the motion. Seeing none?
I'll jump in here. Sorry, John.
Sure.
Thank you. So I too would like to put forward my name here for this committee, particularly with the RTSC potentially not being as involved. My committee involvement is a little bit lower, so I'd like to contribute a bit more. I also have extensive background in emergency management, ICS training, and all that sort of stuff. So I think I would be a valuable add to this committee, and like to put my name forward for it.
Thank you very much. So noted. So we have three council members on the table. We can appoint 2. So how do we want to do this? Sure.
Thank you, Your Worship. And why I did put my name forward, specifically just to give my input and my experience from having been on the social services emergency committee in the city of Edmonton for many years. So I do have significant experience, and I don't want to be hands-on. I want to be helpful with the policy. So I by no means think that the administration can't handle the emergencies, but I do think some of the knowledge that I have would be of use to the committee. So I appreciate the mayor having put my name forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just to make a quick statement of my own, my background is, everybody knows, I'm a volunteer member of the volunteer fire department, and so through there I've been very extensively trained in incident command and the pointy end of what goes on in an emergency. And so felt that myself and Councillor Barnhart had the skill sets that would be complementary to doing this committee, which is why I proposed those 2 names. But Councillor Muckhoff-Swain also has the background. Councillor Hendricks, comment?
Your Worship, and certainly wouldn't want to say no to anybody who's volunteering at any level. My question to you then would be the ex officio position, if that could resolve this, or an alternate position could resolve this, or a non-voting position could resolve this. If it's just strictly to get the information out, perhaps there's some legislative ways to get this done.
Any comments on that suggestion? Can we appoint an alternate, or can I say it as ex officio and then that solves this problem?
Your Worship, I will comment on the bylaw, and then perhaps I will look to our legislative services folks to comment further. Within bylaw 963-19, section 4B, the committee shall consist of 2 council members, the Director of Emergency Management and the Deputy Director of Emergency Management. The bylaw, as passed in November of last year, does not indicate any more or any less. However, again, I do turn to our folks in legislative services for comment.
Ms. Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. The bylaw is fairly clear with regards to what that membership looks like. So if we are looking at an ex officio or an alternate member, we would need to amend the bylaw to fall within the bylaw.
Fair enough. Councillor Danlick?
Thank you. Thank you, Worship. As Councillor Hendricks mentioned, anybody wants to volunteer, never say no to volunteers if you can help it. I do know from Councillor Monkhoff-Swain's comments, his transit committee is winding down a little bit, and he may have a little more time in his hands to contribute to a committee. I'm not saying you or Councillor Barnhart don't have that time, but he has got a little more time and to contribute. So I'd be in favor of amending the bylaw as suggested to allow for three of us to, you three to sit on the committee, whether you're voting on it. I'm not how it worked it exactly, but I'm okay with having three there. If it's three people want to serve on it, we've got knowledge and background, and I see no harm in doing that. Thank you.
Trying to think of. We would have to advertise the bylaw as being amended. We couldn't do that tonight, right? CEO?
You can give it to Slane for the legislative piece all the time.
Thank you, Your Worship. With regards to the legislative piece for the bylaw, there is no public hearing that is needed for this bylaw, so we would not need to advertise this type of change within the bylaw. I will actually let CEO Schwartz answer to that before I move any further with my comments.
No, the comment I was going to add is, you know, this is the structure that's the province has laid out to us, so we're varying from that. I know we've seen instances in the past where multiple contractors, where multiple councillors have volunteered for boards, and we've been letting the mayor to pick two. So you're welcome to do whatever you like. We get 3 council members on there and 2 administration members. So now what do we do? Are we making it bigger? But it's entirely up to you.
Fair enough. Is council comfortable? This being the format being currently set out by the Alberta province, is council comfortable if I propose 2 names and vote on it? Or it's the only way we can break this deadlock. So, Councillor Hendricks.
Take it back. I think. Is there not a motion on the floor?
Yeah, I did motion to. Yeah.
Okay. And so do we deal with that first?
Well, I wouldn't friendly amend it. I would just deal with that motion, and if it passed, great. If not, we would.
Right. So that's why I turn to our legislative clerk, please.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Councillor Hendricks. Yes, there is currently a motion on the floor that the Mayor and Councillor Barnhart be appointed to the Emergency Management Advisory Committee. It was moved by the Mayor. The Mayor could choose to withdraw it, or could choose to amend it, or choose to stop debate and vote.
All right. Further discussion on the motion on the floor? I think this is the way forward. If it doesn't pass, we'll propose 2 more names. So, all in favor?
Opposed?
Passes. Sorry, Councillor Monkhoff-Swain.
Opposed, I said, sorry.
Passes 5-2. Thank you very much, members of council. All right. Thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate you coming in tonight.
Excellent, Nolan. Thank you, folks.
All right, which brings us to item 9A, Bylaw 972-20, our zoning blueprint, land use bylaw general amendments, first reading. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. We are here tonight to give first reading to Bylaw 972-20 to amend our zoning blueprint, land use bylaw 944-19. The proposed bylaw is looking to amend several sections as a result of the monitoring program and through administrative review. Through Council's 2017 to 2021 strategic plan, through the municipal development plan, and through other directional plans, it is important that the land use bylaw remains current, it's flexible, and it's responsive to the needs of the community and development industry. The monitoring program was developed to provide quantitative data on subdivision and development applications that guide regular updates to the land use bylaw. Based on the first 6 months' results, administration has prepared the amendments to achieve goals outlined in the monitoring program, reduce red tape and redundancy. Thanks. So the next few slides I'm going to walk through, these are the proposed amendments to the land use bylaw. Before we proceed, I just want to make note that none of the pictures are to scale, they're just for illustrative purposes only. So the first change is, proposed change is to the yard setbacks, and this is focused in the conventional neighborhood district. Administration received the majority of amount of permits, residential house permits, sorry, in the conventional neighborhood district, and that's why we're focusing the change in this one. So currently the regulations provide for a maximum front, side, and rear yard setback. And although these regulations support low-density housing forms, we are seeing an increased need for variance applications to exceed those maximum setbacks. And of course, with development permits attached to a variance, variance applications come with a 21-day appeal period, which prolongs development. So what we're finding are these builders are building homes that are at the maximum of 1.5 meters or above, and that's why they're requesting variances. And compared to our previous land use bylaw, 1.5 meters was our minimum, not now our maximum. So they're having to adjust, and with that, some of them are still using existing floor plans to fit the lot, so that is the need for the variance. Another important point to mention is that the reason why we wanted to enforce and place maximum setbacks was because we didn't want larger conventional neighborhood, your traditional lot with a single tiny home on that. So we wanted to kind of control how the dwellings were where the dwellings were located, but we wanted to also provide flexibility, but also provide for the traditional neighborhood that the CN district holds. So some of the proposed changes, we are looking to remove the front and side yard maximums. So currently our maximum side yard setback is 1.5, and we're proposing to eliminate that. And then our current maximum front yard setback is 6.5, and we're currently proposing to remove that as well. In addition to that, we want to put forth adjusting the rear yard setback at currently it's at 1.2 meter minimum, and we want to adjust that to a minimum of 6 meters so that you're not getting a large house right snug up to the rear property line. It kind of provides for some private amenity space in the backyard. And since we're proposing to remove the maximum side yard and front yard setbacks. With this, again, we don't want the tiny homes on the large lots, so we're looking to put forth stronger language to ensure the character of the existing conventional neighborhood is maintained. Next up is the notification requirements. So currently with any development permit that's a discretionary use or it requires a variance, the notification process requires that a notice of proposed development be posted on the property for 10 days before a decision is made. So essentially somebody comes in, they apply for a development permit, it has a discretionary use. Well, we can't make a decision until the sign is put on their property for 10 days, and then we can make a decision on that. The photo on the left shows an example of a sign that we create, we laminate, they pick it up, and then they post it on the site. So what we're proposing is that this amendment, amend the language so that this notice is required at the discretion of the development authority. And this will be determined, the development authority will determine when the notice is required. All decisions on discretionary uses and variances are still going to be posted on our website, and they're still going to go to adjacent landowners who appeal the decision. So before moving on, I just want to kind of give you an example. So an example of where the sign is required is if somebody comes in for a residential house permit and the lot coverage is at 57 and the maximum is 55 in the district, they are required to put the sign out for 10 days. We can't make a decision. It prolongs development. Whereas if we determine it, it's at the discretion of the development authority, we can say, well, it's not going to impact the neighborhood, or it might, but it's at our discretion. An example of where we will require a sign is if a maximum house height is, say, 2.5 meters and they're proposing, 2.5 stories and they're proposing 3, we're probably going to want the sign to notify adjacent landowners. And the intention of this regulation is really to provide advance notice to landowners of a development that may have external impacts, so we can mitigate those issues. Okay. Landscaping requirements. So currently, our land use bylaw for lots less than 2,500 square meters, there's no landscaping requirements. We're proposing that even if a lot is less than 25 square meters, that there's at least 3 trees and 5 shrubs. For lots greater than 25 square meters, it's a little bit different. So in the chart below, you'll see, based on an example, this is how we calculate currently our landscaping. So you can see within the region, we're significantly high, except for Fort Saskatchewan, but we're significantly high. So we're looking to change the wording of that, of how we calculate landscaping requirements, so that if a site, for example, is 13,334 meters squared, we take 10% of that, and then from there, calculate the number of trees and shrubs. So using that calculation, you're coming to about 38 trees and 38 shrubs, which is more consistent within the region. Another proposed amendment is window glazing. So currently the shopfront entrance feature within the integrated neighborhood and the mature neighborhood is a minimum 70% of the ground floor facade needs to be non-glazed. With development permits that we've received, this number is on the higher side. We're getting it at around 50, and we believe that that is a comfortable number to put, especially when you're integrating these type of buildings in conventional and other low-density housing types. So what we're proposing to do is be consistent with the commercial district and reduce that number to a minimum of 50% non-glazed, not 70. Site coverage in the conventional, site coverage in the, it's supposed to say integrated neighborhood district, my apologies. So currently for a multi-attached accessory building, so a garage, the interior lots, currently the maximum site coverage of an accessory building in the IN district is 15%. When you're looking at a multi-attached lot, the interior buildings, when you're comparing that to a small 2-car garage, we're getting 17%. So we're looking to adjust the wording that it increases the site cover. An accessory building increases the site coverage to 17% at the discretion of the development authority, and we believe that this should help with market demands, flexibility, and good site design. Facial wall signage. Currently, the area for a facial wall sign is a maximum 2 square meters. We're proposing that it revert back to the previous land use bylaw, where the wording was a vertical height of 2.14 meters and a horizontal dimension not greater than the bay or the building. The 2 examples on the left shows a sea change at just meeting 2 meters squared for signage, and then if we allow the proposed amendment, it allows for a bigger sign that's legible from the street. Housekeeping amendments, so any grammatical, typographical, or definition amendments that do not affect the intent of the regulation, but rather are required for consistency or readability, and or to remove duplication and any redundancy that was in the land use bylaw. These are some events that took place for public engagement and communication. The most current event was on January 22nd and 23rd. This was a public open house held at the Coet Connect, which had great positive feedback, and was also held at Council Chambers. The second night, we provided an online survey, and all of the results are posted on our website with boards. So that concludes my presentation. So our recommendation is to give first reading to Bylaw 972-20 to amend our zoning blueprint land use bylaw 944-19. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Before we open discussion, is there a member of council willing to move first reading? All right. I will move first reading. Oh, sorry, Councillor Stout?
I'm happy to move. Yes, so moved, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion and questions of administration on this bylaw. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to tie together the two ideas of the setbacks in the backyards and the site coverage. I had a resident speak to me about concerns with having a garage setback far, I believe, in the this new skinny home neighborhood, and the garage is set back so far on the property that in order to get into it, you have to do about a 3-point turn, and to get out, you have to back across the alley onto someone's driveway to turn back. Just wondering how that works when we increase the, I believe you said the rear yard setback to 6 meters, and then we combine that with the site coverage percentage maneuvers there. Just wondering if you could comment on that concern that I heard. Thank you.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Van Newkirk. So the 6 meter side yard setback, or sorry, rear yard setback that we're proposing is for the principal building. We're not looking to make any changes with the accessory building per se. And so that will still maintain at the 1.2. I'm assuming that you're referring to rear lane product?
Yes. That's
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So the first revision of the land use bylaw, it changed the setback for the accessory building, and it's at a minimum of 1.2, and that's not on the table to be discussed. But
yeah, sorry. Thank you, Brian Stewart, through to Councillor Van Newkirk. Just to time Ms. Kwasi's comments there, the previous land use bylaw that we had in place before this version had a larger setback in the rear yard for rear garage products. So the accessory building almost had a rear driveway at the back. And with this new land use bylaw, we removed that requirement to address that very issue. So that's already, with newer houses being built, that won't continue to be a problem.
Sure, go ahead.
As in the accessory building will be placed farther away from the laneway?
Closer.
Oh, closer to the laneway. Yeah, so that was the concern that was brought to me, is that the garage is so close to the laneway that you have a hard time turning into it because there's not enough room. So anyways, that's just
we'll take that back
definitely
to review. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have a question, but it's on the second one after the setbacks, the notification changes. And my question is, just to clarify, I see that the notifications would still continue to be mailed to, it says, adjacent landowners. Is that only right touching that property, or would it be within a 50 meter radius, or what does that mean when you say adjacent landowners?
Through your chair, through the chair to Councillor Barnhart. So when we circulate to adjacent landowners, yes, it is any land that is touching that property, but we also take into consideration the variance or what's being asked. So if it's something that's going to pack the entire neighborhood, most certainly we're going to extend that boundary. If it's going to affect ingress to the subdivision, again, we're extending that boundary. Any party that we feel is affected, we make the decision at that time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to the presenters, thank you for providing a red line copy of the land use bylaw. I really appreciate that. I don't think I could read a 300-page document without, and then decide what had changed. So that makes it much easier. A couple of questions arise immediately out of that. However, firstly, there's a change from let's see if I can find the wording. Yes, dismantled or wrecked vehicles and recreational vehicles are prohibited from parking in a frontage. All vehicles shall be parked on a, and then we've changed that from hard surface to parking stall. What's the purpose of changing from a hard surface to a parking stall, and what does that actually mean?
Through the chair to Councillor Stout. So we made this change because there was a discrepancy between what is a driveway and what is a hard surface. So what we've done is we've added the definition of a parking stall. So a parking stall, and the definition reads, and this is just to be more specific, a space set aside for the parking of one or any vehicle which within the urban areas of the City of Beaumont must be a hard surface to the satisfaction of the Development Authority. So a driveway, if somebody decided to widen their driveway and there was gravel there, we just wanted to make it very clear that it has to be hard surfaced and that it's and that it had to be hard surfaced and it had to be approved by the Development Authority.
Right. Okay. So if I want to park my RV on my property, then obviously I can't park it on the lawn. I've got to if I provide a hard surfaced area to park it.
Right.
When would that not be a parking stall? Evidently, that's at your discretion. But
through your worship to Councillor Stout, yes. So what we're finding is there's definitely residents who are widening the driveways or parking in the frontages where and it's going over the municipal boulevard where it's not approved. There may be underground services underneath. So we want to ensure that it's approved because they're allowed to do that there and they're not impacting any of the boulevards.
Okay, thank you. So the purpose of the change is to ensure that the vehicle parking surfaces meet with the approval of the planning department.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. Can I ask another question? There's also a change in fence heights from one, I'm just trying to find the reference. Yes, a fence wall or screening may not exceed 1 metre within a principal frontage or 1.8 metres in height on any other portion of the lot. A permit is required for a fence exceeding 1 metre in height on a secondary frontage. Where I live, most of the fences are on the secondary. By secondary, I assume you mean back or side frontages.
Through your worship to Councillor Stout, yes, it would be on not the principal frontage where, say, the driveway is located, but on the side yard there.
Right. So where I live, most of the fences are 6 foot on the backyards, 1.8 metres. Does that mean that they now all require a permit?
So through your worship to Councillor Stout, yes, they would require a permit. Some fences on corner lots are done through the developer. So at the subdivision stage, we require that a restricted covenant gets registered on that particular title on the corner lot. And then they have to abide by our general design standards, which is about 6 feet for a board fence. But we also look at the step down as well. So we don't want people building a fence right to, say, the sidewalk, because when a vehicle traffic or pedestrians or cyclists are going by, we want to make sure that it's safe and the sight lines are clear. So yes, that hasn't really changed. It's more of just now it's going to be in our land use bylaw that a fence is required and you need a permit if it's over a meter in height. So
does that apply to existing fences?
Through your worship to Councillor Stout, if somebody was building or repairing a fence for maintenance purposes, probably not. But we do, if the developer doesn't install the fence and the builder didn't install the fence with the house permit, then they would require a permit.
Okay, thank you. There's one more.
Sure.
There's also, let's see if I can again find this quickly. There's also a removal of a requirement to provide pedestrian circulation plan on new developments. I'm curious to know why that's being removed. I'm hoping that new developments do make good provision for pedestrian circulation.
Is there a particular section that you're looking at?
It's 57. The following clause within section 5.14.3 shall be removed. As this is a duplicate. I should have read this. So just... Okay. I am on page 31 of 486. Section 57. The following clause with section 5.14.3 shall be removed as a duplicate of 5. So, I'm assuming then the intent of that is not to get rid of the need to provide a pedestrian circulation plan.
Through your chair to Councillor Stout, yes. So it was actually in there twice. So that was an administrative error. Oh, yes, it's a housekeeping amendment. It was in there twice.
It does still apply. There is a need to have a pedestrian circulation or a new development. We just don't need to state it twice in the document.
That is correct.
Super, thank you.
Councillor Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to circle back to the fencing and screening piece there. The question I had is, and I know you just went through this, but it wasn't clear to me. So the change now is saying that a permit is required for a fence exceeding 1 meter in height on a secondary frontage. If there were to be a fence that exceeds 1.8 previously, is it correct that that becomes a issue to raise with bylaw, or is that an issue that is raised with planning? Where would that issue be raised by a resident?
Through the chair to Councillor Van Newkirk. So within our general design standards, we do state that a board fence needs to be 6 feet in height. And so it also is through the developer architectural guidelines that they do state fence requirements, but it's typically done through our general design standards.
Follow up?
Sure.
How about when a landowner or property owner builds their own chain link fence, how they see fit? How would that be addressed here?
So through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk, are you referring to a corner lot or just
a row of houses with two residents have brought this concern to me, and I'm going through here. I saw this and I wondered if it wasn't a bylaw issue versus a sort of bylaw enforcement issue versus a issue to be raised in the bylaw conversation.
Through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk. So if somebody wanted to install a chain link fence on a corner lot, just on a normal lot. No, that's private landowner.
Yeah.
If they're backing onto a park or a school or a public utility lot, then there would be something registered on their title that says what kind of fence they can have. But if they wanted to put a chain link between two neighbors, that's totally up to them. They don't need any permit for that.
Despite the height, I guess my question is the height.
Yeah, so through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk, again, the general standards for chain link fence, 4 feet. If they wanted to apply to extend that, there's nothing in the land use bylaw that says that they need a permit for that.
Okay. Yeah. That's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Denwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation. If you don't mind walking me through again, if you could, your slide. It was the second or third slide on the maximum setbacks. You had two different diagrams on that particular slide. I think it was the next one down. I think that one right there. Yeah. So on the left is the current situation.
That is correct.
On the right is what we're moving to, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Could you just walk me through again the logic of the change of this? I'm reading through the RFD and changing the setbacks. I'm not exactly 100% sure what we're trying to accomplish here. If you don't mind clarifying for just for a moment or two.
Yep, through the chair to Councillor Danlick. So currently in our land use bylaw, what we're seeing is a maximum, let's start with the front yard. So we have a minimum of 3 meters to a maximum of 6.5. So what we're seeing are builders are submitting applications, development permit applications that are exceeding that 6.5. Some of them are at 6.8. Some of them are at 7. And some of them are even at 8 or 9. So what we're looking to do is reduce that maximum number in order to accommodate a front attached garage dwelling unit, so that they're within that threshold. And we're also looking at what is existing in Beaumont today. These are traditional lots for an front attached garage product to be located and have a maximum of 6.5 meters, where the other ones, say down the road that were built previously in previous years, have an 8 meter. It provides for some differences, and so with that, we are looking to change the maximums for the front yard, and then also take into account irregular shaped lots as well, right? So lots of them are the house is set back further, so there's again 8 or 9 meters of driveway. They're having to apply for a variance. So this will just help speed up the process. For the side yard, I had mentioned in our previous land use bylaw, our minimum was 1.5 for a side yard in most residential districts. And now in our land use bylaw, the maximum is 1.5. So what we're seeing are the builders had a floor plan, a house, a building for the right building envelope. The house now, it exceeds that 1.5 meters from the side yard. They're coming in at, say, 1.7, 1.8, sometimes 2 meters. And so by removing that side yard setback, it will allow residential building on a lot to be just a minimum of 1.2. They can go as far back as 2 meters if they want to provide for extra room in the side yard. For the rear yard, setback, again, right now it's at the 1.2 minimum. So that's essentially, you could build your house, a large house that takes up most of the lot, taking into considering the maximum lot coverage, but you could build a house almost as very close to the backyard for the adjacent property and behind. So it doesn't provide for a lot of privacy. So what we're looking to do is change the side yard or the rear yard setback for the principal building to a minimum of 6 to hopefully provide for more space between, private lots.
Okay. This pertains mostly to new builds, correct?
That's correct.
So in the situation in an older neighborhood where someone was to buy a lot and tear down the house and rebuild a brand new house, if they wanted to, with an attached garage, these new rules would apply to that rebuild, would it not?
That is correct.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so seeing no further requests to speak or ask for questions on this item, I'll call the vote on first reading. All in favor? Oh, text.
In favor.
Yeah. All in favor? That carries
All in favor.
Thank you. And that brings us to item Bylaw 9B, Bylaw 970-20, Beauval Park, Beaumont Lakes South ASP Amendment, first reading. Councillor Hendricks.
Worship, under Section 172 of the Municipal Government Act, I wish to declare a pecuniary interest in this matter. My pecuniary interest is embedded within the relationship my company, Hendricks Construction Limited, has with the development company actively working in the Beauval site area.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Please.
No, it's good. Okay. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I'd like to introduce to you Bylaw 9. Okay. I'd like to introduce Bylaw 97020 this evening to amend the Beauval Park Beaumont Lake South Area Structure Plan that was originally approved in June 2017. As you probably know, an ASP, or Area Structure Plan, is a statutory plan that provides the planning, transportation, and servicing framework for a specific area and must be consistent with all higher level plans. So our ASP area is shown in attachment 3 on page 339 of the package. And it's in southeast Beaumont, the quarter section bounded by 50th Street to the west, Beau Meadow and Glenbrae to the north, Lakeview to the east, and Highway 625 to the south. There are a few components to this application, and I will walk through them with reference to the amendment map on page 341 of the package. So the first component is that it proposes to change the land use designation of a 1.39 hectare parcel from residential supportive and assisted living to medium density residential, which could allow for development such as low-rise apartments or townhouses on the site. We're calling that the west medium density parcel, and that's the green parcel on the map that's shown. At the same time, the application proposes to remove the residential supportive and assisted living designation from the area structure plan entirely. That designation had a planned density of 104 units per hectare. And so to maintain the overall planned density of the plan area, the application will update the planned density of the medium density residential designation from 40 to 48 units per hectare. So that also affects the purple parcels that show up on this map. It also will update the planned density of the mixed use designation, so the yellow parcel, from 40 to 45 units per hectare. And so that would give us the overall concept that's shown on page 342 of the package. The final component of the application is to update the overall land use statistics to reflect these changes in land use. And I wanted to note that all of the affected parcels and designations are so far undeveloped, so this amendment only affects land use and density requirements for future development. There are a couple of additional points that I wanted to bring to your attention. First, this amendment must conform to our municipal development plan. And in administration's view, it is consistent with the MDP, including the overall approved land use concept. Specifically, it meets policy 3.5.1, which states in part that all new residential areas shall be required to provide diverse and innovative housing options that meet the needs of residents at all income levels and stages of life. This shall include a mix of single-detached, semi-detached, row housing, multi-unit housing, and apartments integrated within neighborhoods. It also meets policy 4.5.3, which directs medium and higher density residential development to areas with good access to major roads, trails, and walkway connections. The other point that I wanted to raise is that this amendment must also conform to the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Growth Plan, which requires greenfield development to meet density targets. Now, this ASP was approved with a target of 25 units per residential hectare, and it must continue to meet that target. So that's why some of the density adjustments have taken place. By slightly increasing the overall target density of medium density and mixed use designations to compensate for a reduced number of units on the former assisted living site, this amendment meets that requirement. Effectively, it redistributes density within the plan area. The amendment does not propose any other changes that would affect issues of regional concern or that would require a referral to the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board. We did some public engagement for this amendment at a couple of points. In July, prior to the formal application, the applicant circulated a pre-notification letter to landowners within 100 meters of the area for some preliminary feedback. And as part of the application process, the city circulated an information package to landowners, external technical agencies, and city departments for review. And through this engagement, no issues have been raised that we feel are not addressed by the content of the application. So with that in mind, administration is recommending that council give first reading to this proposed amendment, or alternatively to let us know how you would like to proceed. Thanks for your attention, and we'd be happy to respond to any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Before we get into questions, is there a member of council willing to move first reading? Councillor Danlock.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you.
All right, discussion on the motion. Any questions for admin? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Just on page 341, just wondered if you could explain what types of development would be seen in that purple spot, medium density residential, it says density to be increased. Just some examples of types of housing.
Types of housing that could occur.
Yeah.
So that would be things like a townhouse complex or some low-rise apartments, that general type of development. Yeah.
Yeah, and would there be a story height, like how physically high those buildings
It would
could
be
be?
defined by the land use bylaw, I believe, and I may be corrected that it's approximately 4 stories would be the maximum.
Okay. And then second question?
Sure.
Just, I'm always perplexed as we move from the aerial photographs, which I can see really easily, onto the more cartoony drawings. So when we move to the next page on 342, I see that the road just heads north into the brown spot, which was purple previously on the page. Does that speak to how the design will end up at the end of the day, as in the road would head up into that complex unit? Is that how that would be, or is this just depicted this way because it's a simplified version of what might be?
Yeah. So the road would likely lie in that general location, and then once access to the site was established in that way, then the site plan itself, which would occur at the development stage, would set out how the circulation would happen in the site.
So the road would go in and meander, or do
what it needed to do.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm disappointed, through Your Worship to the presenter, I'm disappointed that we are removing the designation for residential, supportive and assisted living from this, and to such an extent that I'm disinclined to support it. I noticed the reason I asked for Councillor Barnhart's report to be not included in the consent agenda, because I wanted to get a quote from her report in reference to this, where she remarks that with the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation, a second major priority is addressing the growing demand for seniors and affordable housing in Leduc and surrounding communities in an efficient, effective and sustainable manner. Recent cutbacks in the provincial government grants and the upcoming provincial budget will be assessed by the Finance Committee and reported back to the Board as soon as possible. So there's clearly a need. It's not going to go away with the passage of time. In fact, I think it will intensify as the population ages. And I'm also concerned that that's not really consistent with the stated objectives of providing a mix of residential housing types suitable for all stages of life. I'm trying to find that quotation. Yes. Yes, and for aging in place, so that seniors who require assistance and well, not necessarily seniors, older people who require assistance and support in living can continue to live in the community in which they've chosen to live and spent chosen to live, yes, where they've always lived. So I'm disinclined to support this under those circumstances.
Process, Ms. Winder.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to remind Councillor Stout that at first reading, we're asking clarifying questions, not taking a stance on it. We're introducing the bylaw, and we're kind of borderline on debating the bylaw within his statement. So I just wanted to remind Councillor Stout at which stage we're at with regards to the bylaw.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you. I was going to make a similar comment that clarifying questions is where we need it to be, and when we start stating position, we are outside of what first reading is intended for. Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship. And on the same topic, I'll ask a clarifying question. So I recall this area coming before us several times, and some of the concerns that were raised. I wonder if you could give us a little bit of background as to why we are seeing the changes in that the proposed use of it. And I know this isn't a development permit; it still has to be put forward for us. But just kind of concerned that it has changed, and it's actually the density is going down, not up. Right, the density was 120 or something, and now it's going to 104. So, give us a little history, and maybe it'll help us understand what has happened here.
Sure. Through your worship to Councillor Barnhart, that is an excellent question. When the Beau Area Structure Plan was first developed, there was a very particular development that was in mind at that time, and why that parcel had such a very specific density and everything else that was assigned to it. That development never came to fruition. So the proposal that is now in front of, that's now being considered, I guess, or contemplated by the developer for the area, does decrease that density in that area, but still provides the opportunity to have seniors housing or different types of housing like that, but it doesn't mean that it only has to be that. And I think that that was maybe where some of that came in, was that it was very restrictive before, and there were some concerns with that. But ultimately, it's just a change in that it wasn't feasible based on the market to develop it at such a high density. So they have dropped the density and then rebalanced it across the site.
Thank you for the answer. Does this change eliminate the possibility that assisted living and supported living can be put there? Or does this just enable another alternative, which I can add might be more attractive to the developer, not necessarily meet the need for the seniors and those that need assisted living? So as Councillor Stout has said, there's a high demand for this kind of housing. So I'm wondering if we're not backing off from something that should be allowed, and it's still allowed, but we're not encouraging it. Is that the sense I'm getting?
Through your worship, Councillor Barnhart, the new land use bylaw, this area would have to be redistricted. The new land use bylaw is very flexible. It allows for a wide range of development of types of uses that would meet with, I guess, the overall development concept that was proposed within the area structure plan. So the area structure plan is going to dictate kind of the form and what types, and it's saying it's going to be medium density, it's going to be higher density, it's going to have all these different things, but the actual form of that is going to come through the land use bylaw, which is very flexible now and will still provide for that. Doesn't preclude that, it just provides for more flexibility, more options.
All right, seeing no further requests to speak, I'll call the vote. All in favor of first reading?
In favor.
That passes 5-1. Can somebody, thank you. All right, so that brings us to Bylaw 9C, or sorry, Item 9C, Bylaw 974-20, Meeting Procedures Bylaw for first, second, and third reading. Ms. Werner, you want to introduce this one?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council and the public. At the January 1st, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting, the committee made a recommendation to administration to amend the Meeting Procedures Bylaw 953-19, Section 23, Committee of the Whole. Administration is bringing forward this amendment to the bylaw with the following changes. Amending Section 23, subsection 4, adding the statement, committee member may make an inquiry to obtain information from the CEO as presented in Section 24, Councillor Inquiries. This amendment allows committee members the opportunity to make an inquiry to the Chief Administrative Officer. This amendment also allows for other opportunities outside of council meetings for committee members to ask questions. This amendment also allows members to receive information in a timely manner. Administration is also making the following recommendation, amending Section 23, subsection 4, adding the statement, discuss arising issues amongst committee members. This amendment allows members to have the opportunity to have further open discussion between committee members on emerging issues within the community. This amendment will also provide a closer link to our Beaumont Municipal Strategic Plan. This amendment provides more opportunities for committee members to have further discussion and provides a venue for members to connect with citizens and the committee members to focus on overall well-being of residents in Beaumont. The further amendments also be including in this amendment, amending Section 24, subsection 1, adding the words of Committee of the Whole, amending Section 24, subsection 3, adding the words committee member, amending Section 24, subsection 5, adding the words committee member, and amending administration titles throughout the document. At this time, administration is seeking recommendation for council to give first, second, and unanimous consent into third reading for Bylaw 974-20. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Winter. We really do appreciate the work that's been put into this. I think this accurately reflects the discussion that we had at the last Committee of the Whole on amending this document. So at this time, I'm going to ask, is there a member of council prepared to move first reading? Councillor Hendricks.
Worship, so moved.
Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor?
In favor.
That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading? Councillor Van Newkirk.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
In favor.
Come on. It's not working. Screw it. That carries unanimously. I don't know why it wouldn't register, but it wasn't working. At this time, I'd like to move that council unanimously approve moving to third reading. Discussion on the, sorry, no discussion on that motion. All in favor?
In favor.
It worked that time. I'm sorry if you pushed once, it didn't take. Councillor Danlock, Councillor Hendricks. No worries, it's probably me. That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? Seeing none? All in favor?
In favor.
And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 10A, Councillor reports. Councillor Barnhart. Can I get a motion to accept Councillor Barnhart's report as information? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
And you had a question, or did that get taken care of in the previous item?
It wasn't a question, it was a comment.
All right. All in favor of accepting Councillor Barnhart's report as information? All in favor?
In favor.
Councillor Hendricks? This thing's sticky tonight. Yeah, that carries unanimously. That's my new word for this. CAO's update. Oops. Councillor inquiries. Sorry, I apologize. Do members of council have questions for administration this evening? Seeing none, brings us to CAO's update. CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, the public. I have a few items. First of all, thanks to the public for coming out to the recent open houses that we spoke about earlier. There were 5 different projects were presented over the last couple of weeks, well, actually several weeks. We had close to 50 people in attendance, so thank you very much. One of the nights was pretty lousy weather and they still managed to come out to the Quebec. So that's good participation. Reminder of budget open houses. There are 2 of them. The first one is tomorrow night from 5 till 7 at the community center. So come on out and have a look at what council has proposed this year for the budget. That open house will be followed by the RCMP town hall in the same location from 7 till 8:30 tomorrow night. The Recreation Parks and Culture Advisory Committee met for the first time on January 26th or 22nd, also at the Coboc. I'm told the group is excited, has taken on several items that they need to get accomplished before their next meeting, which is scheduled for the end of February. We've been having some trials with our Intelli online registration, but we will report that it is up and running. Library programs can be taken in person at the library and online. And also guest services at the community center will continue to support the library with registrations if residents choose to register in person at the community center. A number of activities going on with the BSRC. Roofing work is ongoing. Arena slope metal roof is nearing completion. The interior block and stud insulation nearing completion. And gypsum board shooting is ongoing. Doing some, continuing with some painting along with some interior masonry veneer work as well. And we will be coming back with a more formal update for council shortly. And those are all the items that I had. Refer back to the mayor's comments earlier about tomorrow being Mental Health Awareness Day. And I've noticed staff throughout administration have been actively participating in the Bell Let's Talk, so I look forward to seeing that tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Are there members of council wishing to make a notice of motion this evening? Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, notice the motion that the fireworks component of the 2019 Brighten Up Beaumont event be included in the 2020 Brighten Up Beaumont event.
We will accept that notice of motion. Thank you. Any further notices of motion? Council. All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to move into closed session? Councillor Barnhart.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
In favor.
That carries unanimously. We'll take a quick 2-minute break, reset the room, and then proceed into